Who knows that there's a body? Right now, who knows that there's a body, that you have a body?
I don't know. Something knows. How?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So right now it's known that you're a body. You're a somebody. Well, right now it's known that you have a body.
Yeah.
Are you sure you know that?
No.
There's a thought that appears with a feeling that's saying that comes and says, I'm a body.
Yeah.
I'm a body. And that appears in this. But who's that appearing for? So that thought says it, but who's it appearing for?
That I don't know.
That don't know is actually who you are. And in that appears a body, in that appears thoughts, but they all come and go. In that appears ideas, in that appears emotion. But that I don't know is everywhere and nowhere. It's actually not separate from that thought, those feelings, those ideas. But that I have a body isn't the end point. That appears in this I have a body. That will also disappear in this.
But the impression to have a body is because I can move an arm here, but I cannot move an arm there.
Yeah. So really,
So there is a difference.
it is that seemingly this world is experienced through bodies. Well, actually, all I can say is it's experienced through the Lisa body. I don't even know if there's any experiencing in these bodies, or what's happening in these other bodies, but it seems to be experiencing through this Lisa body. But that is a thought that appears in this. It's a thought that appears to who? Who's that thought appearing to? That thought isn't the knower, isn't the last position. That thought isn't that which is experiencing. It's a thought which is seen appearing and disappearing in this. And we can say, yes, it seems that we're registering and experiencing through this. So the arm moves. The less and less the energy is going into what you think you know as a separate person, the more and more there's just this boundless energy, which is a mystery, which cannot be defined inside, outside. Yet the character carries on, the body carries on, the thoughts carry on, but not for anybody. So who does the thought, I have a body, I experience a body, appear to? And then it's infinite or empty, endless. It's so vast. And then it seems to be that there's a shift that happens, but really there's not a shift that happens, but it seems to be a shift from being something that's happening in time to this boundlessness. And then the character in time carries on, but it's no longer life is happening to that character in time. The character in time is something that comes and goes in timelessness or in boundlessness. So who is it that moves the arm? Yes, it seems that there's even a thought that might say move the arm. Even a choice, should I, shouldn't I move an arm? So there's an appearance of choice. But who is all of that appearing to? And then this is where the absolute love is, because it's so intimate. It's everywhere, that boundlessness. You are everywhere. You were never that limited person. Whew. I just love that part. That's the love part. You were everywhere. You weren't the character experiencing this. But the character isn't meant to be dismissed, and in non-duality now, which I can see why it happens in non-duality, there's this big comeback of the person. Like, the character is not something to be dismissed. This seems to be the machine that's used to experience this. It's a divine machine, and the character is a divine play, and the character has these relationships and these dramas and these arguments and all this funky things, but it's for no one. Before, it was happening to the character. But how can it be happening to the character when the character is something that's appearing? Who is the character appearing for? Most people stop at the character and think that's the backside. I am the character and I'm experiencing life. Who's experience? It's not that something's experiencing the character. It's not. That's a little bit of separateness, but we could say that who's experiencing the character, and then it begins to just merge into everything. That, yeah, very hard to talk about, but it's love. It's the nearest word you can get to it. And it's in everything. Who moves? Who sees this? When it's you seeing this, then it's you and the rose. When it's nobody seeing this, then there's just seeing. There's experiencing. And the character is also another thing which is experienced. And the body is another thing that's experienced. The emotions, the thoughts. The human gets so... What happens in the human is it gets so immersed into the emotions and the thoughts. It's like the emotions and the thoughts are that which are experiencing life, and they become so intense. He's doing this to me. Actually, he's doing this to nobody, and you're doing it to nobody.
So I'm moving this arm. Is experienced just like listening to you.
Yeah, but
and
it's
there's
different.
No difference.
There's no difference, but it's a different experience. But there's no difference. It's not happening to somebody different. It's all happening in this. But it's a different experience, the sound of this voice to the movement of the arm, to the thought, I choose to move my arm. Like the smell is a different experience. But it's all happening to nobody. And that's where the end of separation happens, when it's seen that life was never happening to someone. It was always happening in this. And then the divide begins to stop. And then the character carries on, boom, 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 all its silliness. But it's emptiness. It's always been that emptiness. Or fullness, whichever one you want to say. But it's always different experiences. And then the thought can say, oh yes, Lisa did this, and Lisa did that, and Lisa moves her arm. But that thought is still appearing for no one. That image of Lisa is still appearing for no one. If it's for no one, it's everywhere and nowhere. It's not happening to Beppe, it's not happening to Lisa. Lisa is an appearance. And it seems that the shift happens, but also in saying that, who's the shift happening for? Like it's happening and it's not really happening. Because the shift's for no one, because there was never anyone there. It was just that forced push that was like, you are the character. The character's experiencing this. And because we've most probably, I sometimes think that people that come and listen to me are either 100% brand new to non-duality, or they've listened to this subject quite a lot. They either don't get the middle, it's normally one or the other. Where was I going with that? Nope, that's gone. Sorry. There was something to that, but like everything, it's gone.
Everything is witnessed, and it's just the thoughts that sometimes are tricky.
It's not really the thoughts that are tricky. It feels like it's the thoughts, because the thoughts are that which can be seen. So the thoughts that say, she's an arsehole, why did you do that? Da, 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 da. So that's what can be seen. So that's what feels like the problem is. It's actually the energy that's pushing into that and saying that is who you are. You are the person that dislikes that person, or you are the person that's... So it's like the stickiness to the thoughts and the emotions that's the problem. It's not quite that then you go back to the witness, because there's not really a witness. But yet, then you could say everything's witnessing. It's not that there's a separate witness or a witness that's watching everything. There is everything. Like, where is the witness? But, I mean, I'm open to the word witness. Who cares about the words? But it's not really that there's... You couldn't... I mean, what is the witness? But I mean, what is nothing and everything? All my words. The meanings to. And it becomes so intense when that energy's really claiming the thoughts and really claiming the emotions, because it's then all the focus. It's like a camera, I suppose. If you've got a camera and you were just focusing on, a tiny little part of the experience, it's not that the emotion is the problem, it's just that the camera is totally focused on the emotion, because it says, I am the thoughts, I am the emotions are a problem, the thoughts are a problem. I've got to change these thoughts. It's like binoculars on them, and then the whole experience is about the emotion. I notice, because I do these talks a lot, I sometimes play around with speaking to people, and when I speak with people, often when I ask how they are, or what's happening, or what's being experienced, the two things they point out are feelings and thoughts. And that's a really difficult thing that's happening in the Western world, is so much focused on feelings and thoughts. When Paul and I and Naho were in India last year, what we noticed, I can't remember if me and you, Naho, had this conversation, or it was me and Paul, is that in their culture they're a lot more focused on the external world. So they're not a lot more focused on survival a lot of the time, and what's happening externally, like family. They live sometimes, even in a quite well-off family, it's a lot of family and servants in a small area, in a small flat. So there's a lot more focus outside, and in a way, that's a lot less suffering than what happens in the West, where there's just this focus on thoughts and feelings. Because if the focus is outside, then there's so much being focused on. There's so much, but if it's just thoughts and feelings, like, you can't just have good feelings. Feelings move. Somebody hits you, it hurts. Somebody screams at you, it hurts. Someone pinches your lover, it hurts. Someone takes all your money, it hurts. Different emotions come up. And then thoughts come up and judgments come up. So all these different things happen. But when it's not happening for someone, then it's happening in all of this. And it's not a problem anymore. I mean, it's more pleasant to not have your money pinched and have the money flooding in. But that's beside the point. That's life. Life is a changing, full-on experience. But there's so much of this, and also with psychology, there's so much on what we've been, what's led to what, and it's obvious that conditioning's happened on the body, and so sometimes explaining conditioning to each other helps. Like, this is what happened to me when I was younger, or sometimes a Khaleesi, it helps telling them that she's a street dog or that she's a feral dog, and then it helps people understand why she's not sociable. Although I don't really know why she isn't, but so sometimes explaining that conditioning helps, but it's not. That's not the suffering. The conditioning isn't the suffering. But we often look in psychology or in the West that's the problem. That's what we've got to change. That part of it. Which is okay, but there's so much focus on conditioning, what we've done, where we've been, what's led to this, what we feel now. And I notice actually when somebody's suffering more, so they're more identified, they'll talk more about their psychology in Western world. So I went to see a friend recently, and normally she had awakening a few years ago, and normally she's really bubbly. And this was the first time in a long time that I'd seen her what I would call suffering. And it instantly went back to when we were a lot younger, and she started focusing on psychology and why she does things. Whereas most of the time it's not why do I do things, it's just doing is happening. And then suddenly there was this focus on why she did this, and when she was young this did this, and this did that, and this did that. And that's so popular in our culture now. But it's focusing on a really narrow part of experiencing, which is uncomfortable. Because you can't ever get perfect feelings or perfect thoughts or perfect behaviour.
Coming back to the thought, I can move this arm.
Yeah.
So, this is tricky because I can believe it. And
It's really
if I
intimate.
believe this, then the me starts living or remains.
No, not quite. It's not quite that. It's just that thought appears, I can move this arm, and it's like, it's attached to it's attached itself to that emptiness. It's like, if you feel it now, so it goes, the thought comes up, so I can scratch my nose. So the thought comes up, so it comes up in this, I can scratch my nose, and it comes up with a feeling as if, also like it's like you pop that thought out. It's like,
Okay.
yeah, it's like all these bubbles. I'm gonna move my hand. I'm gonna scratch my nose. So it feels like you, but actually it's because it's so close to that essence. But it's not you. It just feels so close to it. You know what I mean?
But,
Or you could say the witness. It feels so close to the
I
witness.
have no control. So I have no control. It looks like I thought I can move this arm,
Yeah.
but actually this just happened.
No,
just like you are happening.
Yeah, because how do you do that? So if we just say the witness for simplicity, so there is the witness, and then somewhere from God knows where, it feels like you pop out a thought. But how? It's an impossibility. Who does that?
Yeah.
I'm
This is
going to
just
put
seeing.
that harm up.
It's just seeing, just like I'm seeing you.
Yeah.
I see what comes up here. So
Yeah.
it comes up apparently nearer, but I actually don't know. But there is something seen. I can move this arm. There is something else seen. You speaking. There's no difference.
And the directness of everything that's appearing, that thought that appears saying, I'm going to move my arm, is so direct. It's like, it's so intimately coming from nowhere. This sound of Lisa, you can easily put that into a story of it's coming from Lisa's body, it's coming from somewhere, but that thought of I can move my arm so directly comes from nowhere. It's so obvious. It's like, or the feeling, whoop. I mean, where is that even happening? But
Who decided to think it?
Sorry?
Who decided to
Yeah.
think it?
But it
There's
might
no control.
No, but
There's
it
no
might
control.
come-
It just happened.
But it might come with the feeling that you decided or that somebody decided, but still, that's appearing to whom? That can only be another appearance that's moving. So it can appear that somebody's choosing. It still appears here that Lisa's choosing, but it's not somebody choosing. There's an appearance of choice, but it's nobody's choice. And there will always be, with the human body, the appearance of choice. That's the way this functions. Thoughts appear and...
Yeah, there is no control. No, absolutely no control on what we think and what we see. And they're actually, it's exactly the same.
And then you can look at it, the control thing, a different way. This is the way Ramesh Balsaka said it. English is terrible sometimes. So Ramesh Balsaka, this is the nice way that he used to say it, which also is absolute love, is where can you separate out your choice from everything else that's happened? One thing always leads to another, which also takes away all independence. It took me to talk to you, this to happen, somebody to put the seats here, it took the air to be, the world to spin, the sun to it took everything. And so Ramesh used to say, if you need a practice in the evening, take a glass of whiskey and...
I love whiskey. Good man.
Then he would define the whiskey, but I don't know anything about whiskies. What type of whiskey? Take a glass of whiskey and see if you can ever find the beginning of a choice. But he used to say, only if you need a practice. If you don't need a practice, don't bother.
It's over.